Have you ever wondered why some people always seem to have a tidy house, even though they have children, work, and 1,000 commitments? I used to ask myself this question every day as I looked at my completely messy house. It was frustrating to see that pile of clothes on the sofa, scattered toys, and a kitchen that looked like it had been hit by a hurricane. With 3 children and a husband who works from home, I was about to throw in the towel and accept that an organized home wasn't for me. Then I discovered a method that completely changed my life. Do you know that feeling of waking up and feeling tired just thinking about the mess you have to deal with? That's how I used to live. I tried various techniques, watched dozens of videos on the internet, and spent money on organizing products that ended up just gathering dust. But today I want to share with you something I discovered by chance and which has worked not only for me, but for several friends who have also implemented it: 20 minutes a day of strategic organization. It sounds too simple to be true, doesn't it? That's exactly what I thought when I first read about it. But let me tell you how it works in practice. Every day religiously, I set aside 20 minutes. It can be in the morning, afternoon, or evening, to do an organized sweep of the house. It's not that weekend deep clean, but small strategic actions that, when added up, make an absurd difference. At first, I confess it was hard to believe that just 20 minutes would make any difference. My house was so chaotic that I thought I would need weeks of full dedication to get everything in order. I remember the day my youngest daughter spilled a whole jar of cereal in the kitchen, and instead of panicking like before, I took a deep breath and thought, it's only 20 minutes. The secret lies in consistency and method. It's not about cleaning everything at once, but rather maintaining a constant flow of organization that prevents clutter from accumulating. It's like sticking to a diet. It's better to make small, sustainable changes than to attempt a radical transformation that you can't stick to. I'm going to share with you exactly how I structure these 20 minutes to achieve maximum efficiency. First, I divide the house into zones. Monday I focus on the kitchen, Tuesday on the bedrooms, Wednesday on the common areas, and so on. This doesn't mean that I ignore the other areas, just that I devote special attention to each zone on its specific day. One of the most surprising discoveries was realizing that the mess has patterns. For example, I noticed that the entrance to the house always accumulated shoes, bags, and mail. So I came up with a simple system. I put a bench with compartments for shoes and hooks for bags right at the entrance. Now, part of my 20 minutes a day includes organizing this area, and this has completely changed the flow of organization in the whole house. The 20-minute method is not just about physical cleaning, but also about creating new habits and routines. My children, who used to be masters at scattering toys all over the house, now take part in these 20 minutes a day. I've turned it into a kind of game, with a timer and rewards. It's amazing how involved children can become when we turn tasks into fun challenges. But you might be wondering, how exactly do you divide up these 20 minutes? I'll tell you what I discovered after a lot of trial and error. The first 5 minutes are dedicated to a quick visual sweep of the house. I take a basket and put everything out of place: that forgotten glass in the living room, the remote control on the sofa, the lost socks in the hallway. It's amazing how many things we can collect in just 5 minutes. One discovery that changed my life was realizing that not everything needs to be put away on the spot. During those 20 minutes, I keep 3 organizer boxes: one for items that need to go back to the bedrooms, another for things in the kitchen, and a third for objects that need to be decided on later, donated, repaired, or discarded. This avoids the rush of going back and forth along the same route several times. I remember when I started implementing this system. My neighbor Rita always asked me how I managed to keep the house in order despite having a small son who loved to scatter toys and a husband who left work papers everywhere. The secret lies in the routine and simplicity of the method. I don't try to do everything at once, but focus on small daily victories. The next 10 minutes are dedicated to the zone of the day. For example, on Mondays, when I focus on the kitchen, I use this time to quickly clean the worktops, organize the pantry, and check for food that needs to be eaten soon. It's amazing how much we can get done in just 10 minutes. I've discovered that the key is not to get distracted by other tasks during this time. One of the biggest changes I noticed was in my own energy. Before, I felt constantly overwhelmed, as if I was always running at a loss. Now, with just 20 minutes a day of focused organization, I have more time to really enjoy my family. It's no longer that desperate rush at the weekend trying to get everything in order. The last 5 minutes are dedicated to a task that has completely changed my routine, preparing the environment for the next day. I put the children's backpacks by the door, sort out the clothes that will be worn, check if there is anything that needs to be taken to school or work. This little bit of planning avoids the morning rush that used to stress everyone out. A tip I discovered by chance: music helps a lot. I created a playlist that lasts exactly 20 minutes. When the music ends, I know it's time to stop. It helps me stay focused and makes the task more enjoyable. My children love it when I play that particular song, because they know it's time for our special organizing mission. The impact of these 20 minutes goes far beyond physical organization. I've noticed that my family is calmer, mornings are less chaotic, and even our relationship has improved. When we live in an organized environment, our minds also become clearer and more organized. It's as if the external mess is reflected in an internal mess, you know? You might be thinking, but what about when unforeseen events happen? Ah, my friend, they happen, and often. I remember one day when my youngest son fell ill and we spent the night awake. The next morning, the last thing I wanted to think about was organization. But do you know what I discovered? On those difficult days, sticking to the 20-minute routine is even more important. It's like an anchor point in the midst of chaos. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that perfection is not the goal. There were days when I could only do 10 minutes, or even less. At first, I felt guilty, like I was failing. But over time, I've come to understand that what's important is consistency, not perfection. Those 20 minutes are a commitment to myself, a way of taking care of my space and, consequently, my mental health. Another interesting discovery was how this practice influenced other aspects of my life. I began to apply the 20 minutes focused concept to other areas. For example, I dedicate 20 minutes a day to planning the week's meals. This has drastically reduced the stress of supermarket shopping and food waste. It's amazing how a positive habit can spread to other areas of life. One question I'm always asked is, what about the children? How do you involve them in this process? Well, I've turned it into a family game. Everyone has their own 20-minute mission. My eldest daughter, for example, loves to time herself. The youngest has the special task of being the toy inspector. We make it fun, with reward stickers and small prizes at the end of the week for those who complete all the missions. I remember one particularly chaotic afternoon. My husband had an important video conference, the children were restless after school, and I had a pile of laundry to iron. I felt that old anxiety rising, but then I looked at the clock and thought, it's only 20 minutes. I put on my playlist, called the kids, and we did our mission together. It was amazing to see how, in just 20 minutes, the energy in the house changed completely. A valuable tip I discovered is to keep an idea notebook. During my 20 minutes a day, I often notice things that need extra attention or ideas for improving the organization of a space. Instead of interrupting what I'm doing, I quickly jot them down in the notebook. Then, when I have extra time, I review these notes and implement the improvements. The impact of this practice on my social life has also been surprising. Before, I was hesitant to invite friends over at the last minute, always worried about the mess. Now, with the house constantly in an acceptable state of organization, I feel much more confident about receiving unexpected visitors. This has significantly improved my social life and general well-being. One of the most profound changes I noticed was in my relationship with possessions. By dedicating time every day to organizing, I began to question the need for many of the things I kept. I realized that the less we have, the easier it is to keep everything organized. This led me on a journey of minimalism that has been incredibly liberating. You know that feeling of walking into an organized home after a tiring day? That's exactly what I've started to experience on a daily basis. And the best part, this feeling of relief and well-being began to spill over into other areas of my life. I found that I was more productive at work, more patient with the children, and even sleeping better at night. An interesting discovery was how this practice influenced my relationship with consumption. Before, I used to buy organizing products as if they were the magic solution to all problems. Organizer boxes, label makers, filing systems. You name it, I've probably bought it. But with the 20-minute method, I realized that true organization doesn't come from products, but from consistent habits. I remember one day when my friend Paula came to visit me. She was impressed with how organized my house was and asked me what my secret was. When I explained about the 20 minutes a day, she was skeptical. "But how do you find time for that every day?" she asked. The truth is that it's not about finding the time, it's about making it a priority. It's like brushing your teeth. You don't question whether you have time, you just do it because you know it's important. One of the biggest changes I noticed was in the family dynamic. Before, household chores were always a matter of discussion. Who would do the dishes? Who would tidy up the toys? With the new system, these discussions have practically disappeared. Each member of the family knows their part in the 20 minutes a day, and this has created a sense of shared responsibility that is simply incredible. Another thing I discovered is how this practice can be adapted to different stages of life. When I started, my children were younger and the clutter was mainly toys and clothes. Now that they're growing up, the challenges have changed. There are more school papers, sports equipment, electronics. But the 20-minute principle remains the same, we just adapt the focus as our needs change. One question many people ask me is about motivation. How do you stay motivated to do this every day? The truth is that I'm not always motivated. There are days when the last thing I want to do is tidy up. But I've learned that motivation follows action, not the other way around. Often, all you have to do is start and those 20 minutes will fly by. An unexpected benefit was how this practice improved my decision-making skills. By having to quickly decide what to do with each item during the 20 minutes, I developed an ability to make faster and more efficient decisions in other areas of life. It's amazing how a seemingly simple habit can have such a profound impact. Something that has surprised me is how this practice has become a moment of mindfulness for me. In those 20 minutes, I'm totally present, focused only on the task in hand. It's almost meditative. In a world full of distractions, having this daily moment of total focus has become incredibly valuable for my mental health. One tip I like to share is the importance of celebrating small victories. At first, it may seem like 20 minutes doesn't make much difference. But over time, you start to notice significant changes. Celebrate those changes. Take before and after photos, share your achievements with friends. This helps keep your motivation up. Finally, I want to emphasize that this method is not about having a magazine-perfect home. It's about creating a space that works for you and your family, a space that makes you feel at peace when you walk through the door after a long day. It's about freeing up time and mental energy for the things that really matter in life. If you're thinking of starting this practice, my advice is, start today. Don't wait for the perfect moment, because it will never come. Start with what you have, where you are. I remember my first day trying to implement this. It was a disaster. I didn't know where to start, I felt overwhelmed and almost gave up. But persisting was the best decision I ever made. One thing I've learned is the importance of being flexible. Some days, you'll have the energy to do more than 20 minutes, and it's okay to take advantage of that momentum. On others, you'll barely be able to do 10 minutes, and that's fine too. The important thing is to maintain consistency, however imperfect. Something that drastically changed my approach was understanding that organization is not about perfection, but about functionality. Before, I would stress myself out trying to make everything look like the decorating photos I saw in magazines. Now, I focus on creating systems that work for our real family, with its real needs and habits. One fascinating discovery has been how this practice has affected my relationship with time. Before, I always felt like I had no time for anything. Paradoxically, dedicating 20 minutes a day to organization made me feel like I had gained extra hours. Not having to look for lost things or deal with huge piles of clutter frees up much more time than we realize. Another significant change has been in my relationship with shopping. I started to think twice before bringing something new home. Each new item means one more thing to organize and maintain. This has led me to make more conscious choices, buy less and value what I already have more. One aspect I didn't expect was how this practice would improve my sleep. It sounds strange, but going to bed knowing that the house is in order significantly reduces stress and anxiety. I no longer wake up in the middle of the night worrying about the mess I'll have to deal with in the morning. For those with children, I can tell you that involving them in this process is a real gift you're giving them. We are teaching them essential life skills: responsibility, organization, teamwork. I see how my children are becoming more independent and organized in other areas of their lives. A common question I get is how to deal with family members who don't cooperate. My experience is that example is more powerful than words. When I started, my husband thought it was a waste of time. But when he saw the results and how it made me happier and more relaxed, he naturally started to join in. Something I've recently discovered is the power of fast action zones. These are strategic areas of the house where I place baskets or hooks for items that tend to accumulate. For example, a basket near the stairs for things that need to go upstairs. During the 20 minutes, it's easy to pick up these items and take them to the right place. One tip that makes all the difference: always have your cleaning and organizing tools at hand. I've created a 20-minute kit with everything I need: cleaning cloths, all-purpose spray, small garbage bags. This avoids wasting time looking for materials and makes the process much more efficient. Finally, I want to emphasize that this practice is much more than just keeping a tidy house. It's about creating an environment that nurtures your family, reduces stress, and increases quality of life. It's about freeing up time and mental energy for the things that really matter: relationships, hobbies, personal growth. If you're feeling overwhelmed by the clutter at home, feel like you never have time for anything, or simply want a positive change in your life, I encourage you to try this method. Start today, start small, but start. You'll be surprised how much 20 minutes a day can transform not just your home, but your whole life. Remember, an organized home is not the end goal, it's the means to a fuller, happier, and more balanced life. And it all starts with just 20 minutes a day. Are you ready for this transformation?